Hello everyone, I have been asked to make a video on how to solve equations that have fractions in them, so I thought I would quickly make this for you so you can see what to do on this. So here's the first one that we're going to work through, and notice on this one that we have our denominators of 9, 4, 7, and under this 7 is a 1. You can put that underneath there if it helps you to be able to keep things straight, because you're just looking at the denominators here. All right, so when we're trying to find our LCD, remember that one way that you can always find a common denominator is to multiply the denominators together, and that will always give you a common denominator. It might not always give you the least common denominator, but that's okay, because in the end you'll just be able to reduce it and everything will be just fine. In this case, it is going to give us our LCD anyway by multiplying those three numbers together. So 9 times 4 times 1 times 7, right? The 1 doesn't do anything, but that is 252. And I know that seems like a really big number to use, but remember, we're using this to kill the denominators, right? To get rid of them rather than working with them. You could work with them, but usually students make more mistakes when they're working with them. And remember, you can kill them or get rid of them because this is an equation. It starts with an equal sign in it. If there were no equal sign in it to start off with, we could not do this. Okay, you'd have to work with it. So I'm going to take this 252 and I'm going to multiply it by each part of the equation, right? And I'm going to do it in a different color just so you can kind of see that. Hopefully it'll stand out there. So I'm taking 252 and multiplying it by that. Then I'm going to take my negative 3/4, and again I need to multiply that by my 252, and that's going to equal. And then the next one, this is the one that a lot of people forget about. When you take this, some people think, well, it doesn't have a fraction there, so I don't need to multiply it by 252, but you do. And that's one reason why I say put a 1 underneath it to remind you it is a fraction and that you will be multiplying that by 252. All right, so we're going to have 7 and then times 252. And then we're going to take that last term also and multiply it by the 252. All right, so we'll have 252 times our the 2/7 x. All right, and I could have put that 252 on either side, but make sure you keep that minus sign that was there to make sure you have that. And then another thing, sometimes students like to write this as a fraction. Sometimes it helps them to remember what to do with it. If it's written as a fraction, you don't have to do that, but you can. All right, so on this next step, I'm going to show simplifying this. And oftentimes when students see these big numbers, they're like, how in the world am I supposed to simplify it? But I want you to go back up here to the LCD that we had before, right? We know that 9 times 4 times 7 is 252. And so we're going to divide that, right? We're trying to see how many times will 9 divide into 252. Well, if I divide this by 9, right, then I'm really getting rid of that, and I have these two left to multiply by. So I'm really going to be multiplying that by 28, or it goes in 28 times. Or you could do that on your calculator. 252 divided by 9 gives you 28, but you can see it over here, so I would encourage you to use that. Okay, let's simplify the next term. All right, so we're trying to figure out how many times does 4 divide into 252. Again, if we do that again here, all right, 4 is what we're going to be dividing by, so we just need to multiply the other two together. So 9 times 7 gives me 63. So that goes in 63 times. All right, then we'll skip this one because there's nothing there to divide by, since 7 was already over a 1, right? And now let's do this last term. How many times will 7 divide into 252? Again, if we're looking up here, right, we've got 7, and then the other 2 multiplied together would be 36. So that means it's going to go in 36 times. All right, so that's just a faster way to do it, but you can use your calculators to help you figure that out if you wanted to just do 252 divided by 7. All right, so on this next line, we're going to rewrite these, and now we no longer have any denominators, right? You can see here, all of those, I killed the denominators off, so I didn't have to work with them. So 28 times -8 times x is what I'm multiplying together there, and that will give me negative 224x. All right, no denominator, we got rid of it. All right, then on the next term, negative 3 times 63 is negative 189. Then the next term, this is going to be a big one, right? 7 times 252, so that's 1,764. And then we have 36 times 2 times x, so we've got a minus, right, because we got the minus sign there still, 72x. And now looking at this, we're like, oh, that's not so bad. I can totally solve something like this. I've done it lots of times before. So I need to get all of my x's on one side of the equal sign and my numbers on the other side. All right, so I'm going to choose to move my x's so they're together over on the left-hand side. So when I do that, all right, I'm going to add 72x to both sides. And then that will give me negative 152x. I'm going to bring down the rest of this, minus 189 equals 1764. All right, and we know this is gone because negative 72x plus 72x, right, it just is no longer there. So now let's add the 189 over to the other side. All right, if we're moving something from one side of the equal sign to the other, that's when we need to remember to do the opposite of it. All right, so on this one, I'll bring down that negative 152x is on this side. This is now gone, and that's going to equal these two added together, which is 1,953. And then to get x by itself, last thing to do here is just divide by negative 152. And on this one, we'd want to look to see here if there's any way that this could reduce at all. So you'd want to look to see if there's any common factors in them. And if not, then that is going to be your answer. So x equals, and that negative can just go out in front, 1953 over 152. And if they start off with fractions in the question, they're going to want you to leave it as a fraction in the answer. So don't change it to a decimal. It even gives you that little warning on the homework. So make sure you notice that. All right, let's look at one other type of problem, and this one has the parentheses in it, and it's been giving some students some issues. So let's look at one like this. So if you're asked to solve, you got 1/3 and then parenthesis 2x plus 1 equals 1/4 parenthesis 3x minus 2/3. So the first thing that I would tell you on this to do is, if you see parentheses, right, you should think, one way to simplify that would be to use the distributive property. And that's usually what students' first inclination is to do, so don't fight against that. If that's what you're thinking to do first, great. That's not the only way you can start this out, but that's the way I'm going to show this one, just because most students go about it that way. So if I distribute those through, then what I end up with here, right, so this is really over a 1, so I'm doing 1/3 times 2 over 1, so that's going to give me 2/3 x, and then I'm doing 1/3 times 1, so that's just 1/3. Now let's distribute the 1/4 through, so again 1/4 times 3x, or if it helps you to think of it as a 1 underneath it, right, you're multiplying across the top, multiplying across the bottom, gives you that 3/4 x, and then 1/4 times negative 2/3 is going to give you negative 2/12. Right, now I could simplify that, but I'm not going to at this stage yet, because I'm just going to look and see if I can figure out what my LCD would be with these numbers. Right, so when I am trying to find that LCD, right, this time I need to know, my numbers are 3, 4, and 12. Now that 3 is repeated, so I don't need to write that down again. It is those guys are already common denominators there. But one way that you can find the LCD, if you don't want to have to multiply these all together, right, that's going to give you a really huge number, and so you can just try and see, all right, if I counted by 3s, right, list the multiples of 3, I get like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and so on. All right, if I list the multiples of 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and so on. And then the multiples of 12, 24, 36, and so on. All right, so we can see that the smallest multiple of all 3 of these numbers is 12. And some of you may, if you're really good at finding LCDs, you may have been able to see that right off, but if you have a hard time seeing what these LCDs are, try listing out the multiples. That can really be helpful on some of the problems. All right, so our LCD for this is 12. So we're going to take that 12 and we're going to multiply each part by 12, just like we did on the one above. All right, so if I take this and I multiply this by 12, or you can write it as 12 over 1 if that's easier for your mind. Take this, multiply it by 12, right? Also this one, right? You got to do every single part multiplied by 12, and then this one. Alright, I'm going to find my red pen, because this is the one I use to kill my denominators. Remember, the whole reason why I'm multiplying each part by the LCD is so that I can kill off the denominator, so I don't have denominators to work with. So 3 will divide into 12 4 times. 3 divides into 12 4 times. 4 divides into 12 3 times. And 12 divides into itself once. All right, and then on the next line I'm going to rewrite it so that I have my new equations without the denominators. So 4 times 2 times x is going to give me 8x. Then 1 times 4 gives me 4. And then 3 times 3 times x gives me 9x. And then 1 times 2 gives me that 2. All right, and now I just need to get my x's on one side, whole numbers on the other side. I'm going to choose to move my x's this way so I can keep a positive x there. And then I'm going to add my 2 over to the other side, and that will give me 6. And so 6 is my answer on this one. And if I wanted to check this, I could put it back in place for my x's here and check to see that I got the same thing on both sides. Okay, I hope that was helpful for you.